Chad, how do you assess a season like this and where you go next when leading up to it and during it you even talked about the long-term thinking of the franchise, but then you have such a successful postseason run?
I think going into this year, our goal was within 3 years to be, in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we woke up, and we ended up there in 1 year. So a little ahead of where we anticipated being, but it's also a great spot. Our coaches, our players really came together this year, and to get to the Eastern Conference Finals in year one of this is truly remarkable. But it also puts us in a position of looking forward. Our job as a front office is always look forward, and I think we want to continue to be contenders in this league. We want to eventually win a championship for our fans, and this season was a great step. I think in the NBA, there's nothing that's linear. You're not going to just, go to the Eastern Conference Finals and the next year you're in the finals. That's not how it works. I think we all know that. So I think the challenge is on us to continue to find ways to improve. We saw last night a team that's built to win a championship that eliminated us, and we see areas where we got to improve, both as, the roster, skill level, defensively, things like that. There's plenty of areas for us to improve, and I think that'll be a focus for us moving forward with, this summer and building the team moving forward.
Rick said step one of the summer is Pascal and his free agency situation. What have your early conversations with him been like, and what will those be like as the summer progresses?
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the contract stuff, but Pascal was a great fit. Obviously, we targeted him in the trade. I've liked him for a long time, and I thought he came in and was a tremendous piece, to the puzzle for us, and had major impact on the team, both on the court and the locker room. He was a great fit. His personality, his leadership, his experience was very valuable to a lot of our young players. And, he had a great playoff run for us too, and he seems to be happy here, and we're obviously happy with him, and, hope that, this is something long-term for both sides.
Just to keep going on the first point, I mean, what did these playoffs, what did this run tell you that you still need? That whether that's on a personnel level or whether it's on a development level, what did it tell you that you guys still need to make that kind of run?
I would say, as you watch the team that eliminates you, it's always fresh in your mind, what they did to beat you. And I think Boston, obviously, they've got, more experience than us, number one, but they have a tremendous defensive foundation. When we needed to try and score these last couple games, it's been very, very challenging. And they really came together and got stops when they needed to. And I think our players really recognize the importance of being able to get stops as you get deeper into the playoffs. And the good teams, when they need to buckle down and make it really challenging for you to get a good look, they do that. And I think our guys, that's one thing that I think we take away that's going to be important for us moving forward if we want to take another step.
Is there a piece you think you need to do that? Is there a defensive piece you look at and say this is something we don't have right now? You've obviously got a couple young guys that are guarding the best players. Andrew, Aaron, 24-year-old guys have a room to grow, but do you look and say we need something, we need a particular piece to be a better defensive team? Yeah,
I think as a front office, you're always looking for ways to improve your team. I also believe that we have a lot of internal growth still ahead for several of our players. We saw some of it this year with several guys that took a big step, and I think there's more room for growth with several of those players. I think some of our veterans have room for growth too. And some of it is just continuity of keeping guys together, the familiarity of playing together, going through experiences like we just went through over the last couple of weeks together will help us be a little more united. But us as a front office, we're always going to look for ways to improve the team. And, that's our ultimate goal is to win a championship. And if there's something out there that makes sense for us, we feel helps address a need, we'll be aggressive to do that. But we're also very pleased with this group and how they came together, and think that there's still room for development within their own roster as it is today.
Chad, how do you approach the reality of this summer of a good team that's also so young, and how that kind of influences your next steps of team building?
A good young team, there's lots of them out there. I mean, we were fortunate, to get to where we got to this year, but there's other teams out there that are very comparable to us. And, trying to continue on this growth curve takes a lot of work internally. It takes a lot of work from your players to learn from the lessons that they just experienced over the last few weeks. Us as a front office, we look at the draft, we'll look at trades if they're out there, we look at free agency. Those are our tools to try to improve the team. But we're always going to weigh is what's out there better than what we have internally. Is what we have internally, could that get to be at the level where what the trade opportunity or a free agent market might be out there? So you're always looking at your own young guys. What signs are they giving you that they're going to continue to grow and get better? Are they good workers? Are they committed to putting in the time? Are they committed to, be a good teammate? So we're looking for those signs internally, which helps you decide, do you need to go external to try to add to the team? And, the draft this year, we're limited a little bit because we don't have a first-round pick, but that's not to say we won't try to be aggressive if there's something out there to try to help, address some needs that we have.
There was a question to the Timberwolves that went viral last week about needing to lose big before you win big. It feels like this postseason you were able to experience the winning big and then still felt the pain of, quote-unquote, maybe losing big. I mean, can you put a value on the experiences this team has gained from April 15th until now?
It's hard to replicate a playoff setting for a young team, for a young player. As we go through our exit interviews today, as you asked our players, what are you going to take away from this experience? And I think almost all of them, especially our young guys, said, I didn't realize the intensity it takes for every single possession for all 48 minutes. And I think that is something it's hard to replicate in training camp. You can't do it in the regular season, preseason, until you get in a playoff setting where guys are literally playing for their playoff lives and their seasons are on the line. Do you feel that amount of urgency that comes from playing against another team? So I think what our young guys got to go through over these last 3 playoff series, I think put in their mind how hard they got to train in the offseason. A lot of guys I think maybe felt like maybe we ran out a little bit of gas. They were a little fatigued because of you played an extra, whatever we played, 18 games, whatever we played. And I think that took a toll on some of them physically, and I think that'll impact how they train in the offseason. So that's one benefit I think that we'll see that our players couldn't anticipate or no way to prepare for that. But the intensity of a playoff game, of a playoff series against, like we saw, the Boston, team, that's the team that's built to win a championship. We got to experience that. It's hard to put a value on that, to put a label of what that means to a young group. Minnesota's got a young team as well. Like I said, there's plenty of other young teams out there. And it's going to be a challenge next year to get back to this spot. But that's the goal, and the goal is eventually go beyond it.
Kevin talked a lot about last year. You guys talked a lot last year prior to the Pascal trade and prior to the last free agency about wanting to be more aggressive, about wanting to make a big move. Obviously, had a lot of cap space and picks and everything like that. With what you guys have achieved, with the chemistry you guys have, do you find yourself being a little bit more protective of what you have at this point? I mean, I imagine you're still saying you want to look for opportunity, but are you a little bit more protective of the assets that you already have?
Yeah, the reality is we've only had Pascal for half of a season. And, he's been such a big part of the team, but he hasn't had a full training camp with us. He hasn't really settled into Indy yet. And I think that's part of our thinking, is we got to find the right guy. If we're going to make a big move, our scouting staff, we do a lot of work on backgrounds of players, their work ethic, their character, what type of locker room influence they are, and how are they going to fit with us. So it's got to be the right move if you're going to make a move. And it's you can say, teams can go all in at the moment. I think Boston's a great example. They did piece by piece at a time. Denver kind of did piece by piece at a time, and that's what I think is the model we're trying to follow. Trying to add piece by piece by piece and being very selective on what you try to add to this group. But we'll always be looking out there. If there's the right player that fits our timeline, that fits our culture, and fits our locker room, we will be aggressive. But it's got to be the right player.
Chad, I'm sure it may depend on specific opportunities, but how would you describe you guys' luxury tax willingness after a season like this?
I think, Mr. Simon's been super supportive. The Simon family has done so much for this organization, this city. I know they want nothing more than to bring a championship as well. And I think, we've tried to be very conscious of building a team the right way with, both character, basketball fit, finances. But I think if we get to the point where we feel like this is a move that could get us really into a championship, spot, I think ownership will get behind that. But, we haven't gotten to that point yet. And maybe that comes sooner than later. But when it does, I think our ownership's committed to try to win a championship here.
You mentioned the draft earlier. I mean, how just are you approaching those picks? If you end up making the ones you have, 36, 49, and 50, what do you feel like you're looking for? And just how do you view, again, how a draft that only includes second-round picks fits in your broader plan here at this point?
It'll be a little different this year with a 2-night draft. We really the first round is on a Wednesday night, it's like it never happened. So we look at it as we have the 6th pick of the draft on Thursday night. So we kind of have a lottery pick, I guess you could say. There's 30 guys off the board by the time you get to the draft. But we're not approaching it any different as far as our preparation. I think when we look at the roster, we have a lot of, a chance for a lot of continuity, so you can kind of see where are the holes that maybe you just need to fill in roster-wise from a balance, depth chart. But we're always going to be trying to find the best player we can get too. We have needs at maybe a couple of different positions potentially as you look at free agency and who's coming back, who's not coming back. But we're with pick 36, we'll probably try to get the best player we can get, and if ideally it's at a position where we have a roster depth need.
How are you viewing? I know you're not going to try to get too deep into contract stuff, but how do you view Obi Toppin at this point in terms of how he fits for you guys long term, or if he does? Yeah,
I thought Obi was had a tremendous year for us. He brings a lot of things that we look for and qualities in a person. He loves being in the gym. He loves being part of a team. Brings a great attitude, a great smile, a great infectious energy every day, which adds to your culture and adds to the vibe of your team. And we had an idea that's what he was going to be about. You never know until you get him in your building. He's around your team, and he's been beyond everything that we hoped he'd be. And then on the court, I thought he really blossomed as the year grew on. We envisioned him being a good fit with a team that played fast, and he was exactly that. His three-point shooting really developed and improved as we saw this year. The way we play, you get a lot of open shots, and if you can catch and shoot, you're going to have some success, and he did that. His defense grew as the season wore on, and had major impact in a lot of playoff games for us. So we're very happy with the fit. He seems to be happy here too as well. So would like to continue the relationship. It's all part of the business when you get into the contract situation, but really, really happy with Obi as a Pacer.
Chad, what did you think of Jarris Walker's first season, and what do you guys view as the long-term plan for him going forward?
Sure. When we drafted Jarris, I think we saw potential for a two-way player. I think we saw a potential for a guy that could make plays with the ball, could really pass, had a high IQ. We saw him as probably a backup 4 maybe early in his career, whether that was his first year, second year, however long that took. And as we got into the season, as he got experience playing the G League, as we watched him in practice, his three-point shooting really came along, which was a great, surprise for us, I could say. And we saw more potential of him playing some wing position minutes, which is valuable. The more positions a guy can play, the more valuable he becomes. He obviously didn't get a ton of opportunity this year, and that was, reflective. I mean, going back to Obi, he played 82 games this year, which is a badge of honor in the NBA. And so some of it takes, things got to fall into place for a young player to get an opportunity, and it didn't happen very often for Jarris. But that doesn't have anything to say about our belief in him long term. As we told him in his exit interview, your growth and development is a big component of us taking another step, whether that's, immediately or a year or two down the road. But we're still big believers in Jarris and think there's a lot of things that he can do that this roster needs.
This is the first summer that the new CBA allows you to negotiate with your own players right after the finals. How do you anticipate that changing just the whole league sort of operation in that period? And do you think it can be an advantage for you guys?
In general, I think you see more guys getting extended before they hit free agency. I think teams are very conscious of trying to, keep continuity with their roster. We like this group, how it applies to us. There are guys, we would like to retain. But as far as the league as a whole, I think, teams are doing this very often. You have a player that you like that fits your team and you want to get them. They're happy. You're happy with them. You try to get an early extension, and I think you're seeing more and more of that around the league, and you'll continue to see more of that.
I know you're probably not going to answer, but I'll ask, are you guys going to make a max offer to Pascal? You're probably not going to say so, but I'm going to try.
Yeah, I can't answer that one. Sorry.
It was February of 2022 when the franchise sort of pivoted a little bit. To 28 months later, be here is kind of, I'm sure, the envy of a lot of other organizations that have had to take a lot longer time. What's been the key to accelerating this the way you have?
I got to first give credits to Coach Carlisle and his staff. I mean, they've bought into a longer-term outlook, with this team. They've committed themselves to getting our young players better every day. You guys are here. You see them before practice, after practice, and they are out here working, sweating with these guys. And so that growth and development has been a big part of how we've gotten to where we're at. Our veterans have been great locker room guys. They've been very productive on the court, from TJ to Miles, Pascal, James Johnson in his own way. Those guys have been instrumental in building a culture of, positivity every day when you come into the gym, belief in each other, a togetherness. You watch our team play, and we watch our team play every day, so you kind of take for granted the togetherness, the unselfishness, the ball moving as much as it does, because you see it every single day. And then you talk to other teams and other personnel, and we're at the NBA draft interviewing kids for the combine, and they're talking about how fast we play, how much the ball moves, and you kind of like take it for granted until you hear other people talk about your team. And so really it goes back to our coaching staff for creating this culture. And we've got great leadership in the locker room and guys who love being around each other, and that makes for an 82-game season. You don't want it to end. There's seasons where you guys maybe don't like being around each other and they don't share the ball, and it's guys come in moody into the gym. And 82 games can feel like 800 games, and it just feels like you're just ready for it to end. Whereas I think last night in that locker room, nobody wanted the season to end, and that's just reflective of the culture that Rick and the coaches have built here.
To keep going on, Rick, what has been your assessment of the job he's done since you guys hired him 2 years ago?
I think he's been phenomenal. He's accepted, like I said, essentially a team that's kind of rebuilding down a different path. And he's a Hall of Fame coach. He's won a championship, and he could have easily said, "I'm not going to coach a team that's going to take a longer term look." And to his credit, he's embraced it and he's loved it. He loves teaching young players that are receptive to being coached. He loves being around a team that's got great leadership. He's got a great staff that supports him. He's a very creative. He's built one of the best, offenses this league's seen in a long, long time this season. And he's a joy to be around. The players respect the crap out of him. He's just a smart, brilliant basketball mind, and he's done a phenomenal job for us.
I think, you mentioned TJ before. Obviously, I think he comes into next year with a contract that's not fully guaranteed. How did what he did this year change your long-term thinking on him? You guys obviously had a lot of respect for who he was as a competitor, but the fact that he had his best season at 32, in his 9th year, what did that change for you guys in terms of how you're going to view his long-term future?
Phenomenal year for TJ. I think we were kind of joking in his exit interview. If he would have done a journal from the start of the season to the end, that would have been some must-see or must-read, however you say that, from where it started, for what he thought the situation was going to be, maybe not playing, not in the rotation, to being compared to Michael Jordan in the Eastern Conference Finals by Jaylen Brown. That's quite the contrast from start to finish. But I don't know what you can say more about TJ, what he has meant, to this team. Beloved by his teammates, his coaches, the staff, the fans. He's what you want an Indiana Pacer to be about. And, this season, he's 32 years old, but he's not slowing down. I don't think you see any sign of an aging player. He's still got his competitive drive. He still brings it every single night. Very effective at the highest level we saw over the last couple of weeks. And his shooting's improved, and his value to us is obviously is very, very high, and that has not changed by anything that happened this year. And hope that he's with us for a long time as well.
Because you have a younger team, does that make it, I don't know if this is the perfect word, more appetizing to run it back because it's a team that can grow and still be better just by having continuity?
It's one route that we've looked hard at. You always got to look and see what's out there on the market. Is there a player or players out there that are available that makes sense for your team? You're also very excited about the young core we have, and so it's a balance. It's going to be a lot of discussions, a lot of debate, and maybe there's nothing out there that makes sense, and we're fine with that. We really like this team. If we come back with this same group next year, we still believe there's a lot of long-term upside with this group. There's several young players that are, we had two lottery picks that didn't play a single minute in the playoffs for us this year. But still, we're very excited about both Ben and Jarris. I think Isaiah Jackson still has a lot of upside left in him. I think Aaron Nesmith, Andrew Nemhart. We have so many guys. I'm not even talking about Tyrese. Tyrese is still a young player. We had 2/3 of our roster was basically on their rookie scale contract. And so we're still a lot of excitement around what we have if we bring back this same group. we still feel like there's room for growth with this staff or with this team if you just keep the status quo.